The Dodgers had their first of 4 Shohei Ohtani bobbleheads tonight. They may have to schedule a 5th one to commemorate how he ended this one. Let's talk about it live on Locked On Dodgers.
You are Locked On Dodgers, your daily Los Angeles Dodgers podcast. Part of the Locked On Podcast Network, your team every day.
Hey, Dodger fans, this is Locked On Dodgers, part of the Locked On Podcast Network, your team every day. Thanks to everydayers for making Locked On Dodgers your first listen every weekday morning, and thanks to those of you who are with us live here on Wednesday evening for the celebratory episode. Remember, this show is free and available on all podcast platforms and on YouTube simply by searching for Locked On Dodgers. You can make it easy on yourself and subscribe wherever you're watching or listening right now. If this is your first time with us, my name is Jeff Snider. That guy next to me is my co-host, Vince Samperio. Vince and I are both lifelong Dodger fans, just like most of you. We've also both spent time covering the Dodgers in the press box and the locker room. So we bring you the smart fans' perspective on our boys in blue every weekday morning. And Vince, Shohei Ohtani, we could start every episode by talking about Shohei Ohtani. It's, there's always something to talk about. Today especially, though. It's his bobblehead, the first of 4 bobbleheads. People lined up for hours ahead of time. I saw some hard-working intrepid reporter got video of the long lines before the game for BR walkoff. Got your steps in, Vince, and Shohei sent all those people home happy. A game that Dodgers had no business winning. Luckily, the Braves had no business winning it either. Somebody had to win. That's the rules of baseball. And Shohei said, "Might as well be me."
Yeah, it was the Dodgers early on trying not to win, and the Braves trying their hardest to lose. It seemed like. Or I don't know. It was a weird game for sure. You look up and you're down 5-0 and you're like, oh man, you knew the Dodgers had a chance to come back, but it was also one of those where you knew if Snell didn't go deep into a game, the Dodgers were going to have to maybe stretch some guys out in the bullpen because they did have probably at least 2-3 guys that were probably not expected to pitch or shouldn't have pitched because they've thrown the last 2 days or threw yesterday. I think Bonda threw like 29 pitches yesterday. So it was a combination of, 7-1 is cool and fine and dandy. And even though the Padres won earlier in the day, it's not a big deal. And then you get, the power. The Dodgers put up some power. Edmund homers, Conforto homers. They had a couple chances to get back into the game. Didn't quite work out. Muncy, who was one of the main reasons the Dodgers were down 5-0 to start with, comes through. And then it all kind of lined up after that. And you kind of figured, okay, if it's going to happen, this is the way it's going to happen.
Yeah, absolutely. The starting pitching was, mediocre at best. We'll talk more about that in the second segment. The defense was lousy. We'll talk about that in the third segment. The base running was even bad. Marco Conforto got thrown out at third base. Andy Pages came dangerously close to being thrown out at third base with no outs. And in a situation where, I'm still baffled every time I discover that Andy Pages is 24 years old and still hasn't learned how to slide. It's they take that dude to sliding camp. But, all in all, it ended up being and then after he didn't get thrown out at third, he did get doubled off on a play that maybe he shouldn't have. I don't know if he had a realistic chance of getting back. But all in all, it was just a combination of so many things. I texted you, when it was 5-3, the Dodgers were kind of making their comeback. And I said, this game's a heat check. It's let's play as poorly as possible and see if we can still win. And they did. And ultimately, Max Muncy, like I said, we'll talk about him later. He got them back in the game. But in the end, we're all doing the math in that 8th inning. Dodgers tie it up. And we're like, okay, Shohei Ohtani's due up second in the bottom of the 9th inning. Not that I was happy that Andy Pages struck out to start that inning, but I was not upset because that's okay. Pages is just a sideshow. Get him out of the way. Whatever you got to do, strike out, pop up, hit a single, whatever. It doesn't matter because this is Shohei's game. And I think Joe Davis even referred to it as inevitable, maybe stole Steven Nelson's line from last year about Shohei being inevitable. But it did feel kind of inevitable on this game when you saw how it played out and you're like, of course Shohei's going to end this game.
Yeah, it was either going to be 7-5 or 6-5, the way you kind of everyone had it in their mind. Paz was going to get on or not get on. Ohtani was going to homer. And I want to say he had a chance in one of his bobblehead games last year. I don't know if for walk-off specifically, but I think late in the game, and it didn't quite work out. And you're like, okay, it doesn't always go the way it is. But then the rest of that season ended up being like, walk-off for 40-40, and then the incredible game for 50-50, and then, going into the playoffs. And the playoffs, played out a lot of different ways that could have been too cliche. And that's what, this one felt like. It's like, oh yeah, of course Shohei Ohtani, homered on his bobblehead night to win the game. Like, of course, Max Muncy went back to his old bat from the torpedo bat he tried earlier in the game and came through with the big hit. Also being the guy that was, why they were down early in the game. And it all was like, this is too fake, but that's how sports are. That's how baseball is. Sometimes it just seems too fake, but that's how it works out.
And it's also important to note that, for example, game 1 of the World Series last year, it ended in storybook fashion, but that game also felt like Shohei Ohtani was inevitable. Like, of course, Shohei's going to finish this game. When they bring in Nestor Cortez to face Shohei, it's like, of course, Shohei's first postseason, his first World Series game, of course he's going to finish this game. And he popped out. So the inevitable thing it's not actually inevitable. Doesn't actually always happen. But in this case, it did. And, Raisel Iglesias, it wasn't a bad pitch. It was a changeup off the plate. I noticed earlier in the game, like Shohei, it's weird because as much as his butt looks like it's flying out of his swing, he just has so much power when he gets his arms extended. Like, to be able to hit that ball off the plate that hard, if you freeze frame on the moment of contact, you're like, okay, that's not a home run swing. And we get that a lot with Shohei Ohtani. We've joked last year a lot that his swing is not one you would teach to your little leaguers. Hey, watch the video and swing like him, because he is a freak of nature. It works for him because he is remarkably talented and strong and every other thing that you need to be. And it's the perfect swing for him. I would never want him to change anything. But you absolutely, you're going to show Mike Trout or you're going to show Bryce Harper, these guys who have more textbook swings when you're trying to teach your little leaguer how to hit. But for Shohei Ohtani, he's one of a kind. And that home run, I think, is one of a kind. You're rarely going to see Raisel Iglesias give up a home run on that pitch.
Yeah, and it was one of those things where everything comes together. And Raisel Iglesias being in the game at that time kind of also is part of that, because he hasn't pitched much in the regular season because the Braves haven't had a chance to win a game very often so far, or maybe at all. I don't. This might have been the first time they were in position to win a game with their closer on the mound.
Yeah, he had only pitched once this season. That was 2 days ago against the Dodgers when they were losing.
Yeah. So, and that probably played a little bit into it. I when they brought him in, I was like, okay, this isn't. Obviously Raisel Iglesias is a good pitcher, but he's a heavy changeup to left-handers. The Dodgers, for whatever reason, seem to handle pitchers with good changeups relatively well, or at least certain guys with changeups relatively well. And, Muncy got him on the fastball, but Shohei gets him on the changeup, and it was up. And that's the big part of it, is if you leave something up, good hitters are going to punish it, and it all worked out. And it was, it was one of those things where they kept building. You thought, okay, Dodgers are going to get this, then they don't get this. They have 2 on with Mookie up, with nobody out, and, hits a soft liner. Pajas gets thrown out, doubled up, and, they had runners on the other times, and they don't get it. And you're like, okay, well, I don't know if you ever really counted it out, because the Dodgers have done this all season so far, but you're like, okay, you can resign yourself to the fact that they might lose tonight, and then they didn't lose tonight, and that's that works.
Yeah, they sure didn't. Arhanis in the chat asks if tonight's bobblehead has joined the others behind me. He has not. I was not at the game. Vince was at the game. Like a jerk, didn't even get me a bobblehead. I
barely got mine.
But the Dodgers did announce before the game that everyone in attendance would get a bobblehead, and that was the case. We've talked before. I'm pretty sure they did that for the second Ohtani bobblehead last year and just didn't announce it. This year they announced it, and yet even after they announced it, apparently Petros and Money still did a segment on their radio show about how it was only going to be 40,000 people. It's like, this is an official Dodgers announcement. Like, I'm going to trust that over your sources, dude.
Yeah, well, a lot of people, maybe a lot of people, I didn't hear what it was specifically. A lot of people didn't know, because even when I was walking around or in the elevator, somebody was like, oh, everyone's getting one. The guy's like, no, only 40,000. Like, no, everyone's getting one. And I walked by one of the gates an hour after the game, like around 6:45, and they were still handing them out to people that were still walking in. So
yeah, I know my buddy Sean got stuck at work and didn't get there until about 6:15, and he had no problem getting a bobblehead. So kudos on them for doing that. I assume they'll do that for all 4 Ohtani bobbleheads and maybe the Freddie walk-off, I would guess. Basically, it seems like anytime they're expecting roughly a sellout, they'll probably do that because they got some bad pub last year.
I would assume so. The Freddie walk-off is way more expensive, almost not quite double, but almost double the price as Shohei tickets were today. So
yeah, that's wild. So Blake Snell like I said, he didn't get much help, but he also didn't help himself. All 5 runs were unearned, but they were you might have to use air quotes around unearned because some of them shouldn't have happened. We'll dig into that. So thank you for making Locked On Dodgers your first listen, and please keep it Locked On Dodgers. This episode is brought to you by Monarch Money. Do you ever check your banking account and wonder, where did all my money go? Between dining out, online shopping, and entertainment, it's easy to lose track, and that's where Monarch Money comes in, your personal CFO, giving you full visibility and control over your finances. Sometimes it says, oh yeah, you have 3 children. That's where all your money's going. That's what it is for me anyway. But Monarch Money isn't just a budgeting app. It's a complete financial command center. You can track all your accounts, investments, and spending in one place, so you stop just managing your money and start building wealth. Seriously, having everything in one place is amazing instead of having to log into your bank and your investments and your mortgage and your car loan and your credit cards, all those different things. Bring it all together in one place. You can see a big picture look at your money. It also makes it really easy to manage money with your partner. You just track your shared and personal accounts. You set goals, stay on the same page without the stress. So take control of your finances with Monarch Money. Use code LOCKEDONMLB at monarchmoney.com for 50% off your first year. That's monarchmoney.com, code LOCKEDONMLB for half off your first year. Hey, we are back. Thank you for making Locked On Dodgers your first listen every weekday morning. Thanks for being here with us live. Huge group with us here. We really appreciate you. A lot going on in the chat. There's too much in this game to talk about everything. A reminder, this isn't a recap show. This is a let's talk about the Dodgers show. So we're not going to talk about every little thing that happened, but we're going to try to hit the key points, points that are big stories for the Dodgers this season. Remember, you can go beyond the podcast and become a Locked On Dodgers insider by going to joinsubtext.com/Locked On Dodgers. Also, be sure to check out Locked On Sports Today and Locked On Sports Los Angeles on YouTube. And for your second listen, check out Locked On MLB, hosted by our buddy Paul Francis Sullivan, aka Sully. So Blake Snell went 4 innings, allowed 5 runs. Technically, none of them were earned. But he also allowed 9 base runners, 5 hits, 4 walks. Even if you take both of the errors and call those outs, and the double by Albies that Pages should have caught, call that an out, 3 extra outs, 9 base runners in 5 innings isn't great either, and maybe the runs don't score, but the fact is the way earned runs work is once there should have been 3 outs in an inning, anything that scores after that is unearned. And that's what we saw in the second inning. Matt Olson bases loaded double. There should have already been 3 outs. So those count as unearned, but you gave up a bases loaded double, and so it was second straight, somewhat lackluster start for Blake Snell. His ERA is 2, which is really good, but that doesn't really reflect how he's pitched. I think he would tell you he has not been happy with his pitching so far. And it felt like early season Blake Snell, kind of what we've seen from him in previous years, where sometimes he is a little bit slow out of the gate.
As someone who had Blake Snell less than 1.5 earned runs allowed on Prize Picks, I was very happy that that all those runs were unearned because it worked out. Also had Shohei Ohtani more than 0.5 home runs. So it all worked out on that end for me, but it didn't work out quite as well for Blake Snell. And yeah, obviously, the errors didn't help, and that's a big part of it. But when you put guys on base for free, I'm never gonna feel too bad for a pitcher when those runners were there because you put them on. And there's nothing more I think I hate as a baseball person than walks on when you're on the your team is pitching or whoever, because it's just like the other hitter didn't have to do anything. He could have just stood there and he would have got a free pass. And that's sometimes what guys do when they, especially on 4-0 walks. And for Snell to not have that stuff, didn't have any swing and miss at all, really. I think just either 4 or 2 whiffs that he had in this game, just four swings and misses. there wasn't a lot there. He just didn't have it. And yeah, I mean, we've had 2 Blake Snell experience starts so far. One was a little bit better than the other, but ultimately we just had to sit and wait, I guess. I don't think there's anything wrong if this is something that's been happening before.
Yeah, it's too early to be concerned. I guess one question, Vince, I had somebody ask me this during the game. Do you have any concerns about Snell, the persona, rather than just the pitcher? You know, we saw his first start kind of chirping with Will Smith. This time he's chirping at the umpire, you know, kind of running the risk of getting himself tossed. And he did get squeezed a little bit, although it's funny, the one that got the umpire yelling back was the umpire is right on those calls. And maybe that's why he yelled back. Maybe previous times he's like, yeah, maybe I missed that one. So I'll let Blake have his say, but no, I know I was right about these ones. And so he yelled back at him. Do you feel like that's a concern going forward, that maybe there's a little bit of, I don't know if thin skin is the right phrase, but I don't know the right phrase. So I'm just going to end this sentence without using any phrase at all.
I don't have any concern about it. Obviously, I haven't watched him deep enough, even though he played the Dodgers a lot in those games. He did, at least with the Padres, he usually did relatively well against them. So it wasn't too much of that. And beyond that, I don't really watch too much of his starts. But yeah, I don't have an issue with it. His personality off the field is, well, it is really fun. But then when they interviewed him that one time, he was kind of just maybe not expecting there. I don't know what it was. But yeah, I don't have a problem. I think when he locks in. And I don't see it as a thing that, the umpire is squeezing me, so now I'm not going to pitch as well. I don't think that gets to him. He's a guy that's been in the league long enough. But again, not knowing well enough, we'll see.
Yeah, I think that's where I'm at too. I don't have concerns about him barking at the ump. You know, we've seen Clayton Kershaw do that in the season that he won the MVP. You know, like sometimes the ump gets on your nerves and you yell at him, you know, and And
even the thing with Smith, it seemed more like he was asking, like, was it up? And I don't think it was like them two thing, but I don't know for sure.
Yeah, and that's one that I haven't even gone back. I was at the stadium. You were at the stadium. I haven't even gone back and watched it. So and who knows? But clearly they seem like they're fine working together. I don't think there's any lingering issues there. And so as long as his teammates are cool with him, I really don't have. As long as he doesn't actually get himself ejected by an umpire, just pitch better, and I'll be totally fine with whatever you want to do. You can be as grumpy as you want out there as long as you're pitching well.
Yeah, and that's really what it comes down to. Before we get into stuff, obviously the Snell was not great, but the rest of the pitchers were great. Shout out to Ben Casparius, Jack Dreyer, both going 2 innings. Casparius getting out of a big jam, bases loaded, nobody out. So, yeah, it's one of those where, like we talked about, if there was one game you were going to beat the Dodgers, it was Blake Snell not going deep, the Dodgers not having a full bullpen, the Dodgers not playing very well defensively, and Shohei not – or he did have a hit, but yeah, I don't know. It was one of those things where they won that game. I don't know how.
Yeah, the bullpen and the offense won this game. And yeah, you can't say enough about those guys. Casparius, great first inning of work. And then, like you said, got into that trouble in the second inning and got out of it. And you could see how pumped up he was. And Joe and Oro were talking on the broadcast about, like, even in the moment, when there was only 1 out in that inning, Orel said, if he can get out of this would be a huge momentum shift for the Dodgers. Then he did get out, and it did feel like the momentum shifted. It at that point, even if, maybe it didn't shift to the Dodgers, but I think that demoralized the Braves. Okay, the Braves aren't going to do anything else the rest of this game. Now it's just, can the Dodgers do their thing? I don't know how much an offense takes from that. Obviously, they kind of could feel the Braves are done too, so we only need to score 3 runs. Let's do it, no problem. But then, Kirby Yates looked filthy as usual, 1 infield single, and that's it. And then Jack Dreyer, 2 perfect innings to pick up his first career win. Like, I'm a big fan of Jack Dreyer. I am excited to see. He may end up in the minors at some point this year just because of numbers and his spot where he's at, as far as having options and everything. But he is a legit contributor to this bullpen in a way that, like, this felt early in the game like we are going to see Luis Garcia in this game. Like, didn't this feel like a Luis Garcia game?
Yeah, it definitely had that feeling. Like you felt like they'll probably go a good arm in the middle of the game, but if they don't score, then we're going to see Luis Garcia for as many pitches as his arm can handle.
Yeah. All right. So we're going to come back in a minute. The Dodgers won this game on Shohei Ohtani's home run, but before it got to that, they had to tie it up. And that was Max Muncy after a rough game on both sides of the ball. He came through huge. We're going to dig into that. So thank you for making Locked On Dodgers your first listen, and please keep it Locked On Dodgers. This episode is brought to you by Just Ingredients. Looking at me, you can tell that I have a lot of experience making bad decisions about what to put into my body, but today I want to tell you about a good decision I've been making lately. When it comes to fueling your body, quality matters, and that's why Just Ingredients is changing the game with clean, high-quality products designed to support better health and peak performance. Just Ingredients offers an NSF-certified line of protein powder, electrolytes, pre-workout, and creatine, all rigorously tested to ensure they're free from substances banned by major athletic organizations. Maybe Jerks and Profar should look into this. Just Ingredients is also partnered with two-time MVP Bryce Harper, who trusts their NSF-certified sports line to fuel his training and recovery. For me, I've found that when I start my day with a protein-packed first meal, I make much better decisions on what I eat the rest of the day because I'm fuller longer and I don't have as many cravings. I've been loving the Just Ingredients protein powder to help me get my day started right. I actually usually show the bag of protein powder while I'm reading this, but it's upstairs because it's by my blender where I make my shakes. It tastes really good. It has 25 grams of protein per serving, and I love that Just Ingredients prioritizes wholesome, nourishing ingredients without the artificial junk. Visit justingredients.us and use code LOCKEDONMLB for 20% off. And for more wellness tips, follow Just.Ingredients on Instagram. This episode is also brought to you by Wonderful Pistachios. Are you looking for a snack that's both delicious and nutritious? Crack into a good source of protein with Wonderful Pistachios. Wonderful Pistachios is one of the highest protein nuts. Each 1 ounce serving has 6 grams of protein, giving you over 10% of your daily value. Plus, they're packed with fiber and better for you unsaturated fats to help keep you feeling fuller longer. I love that you can choose no shells or in shell because every situation is different. When I'm sitting at my desk and want a quick snack, the no shells variety is perfect. If I'm watching my son play baseball out in the fresh air, sometimes it's nice to crack my own shells, so the in shells options make me happy. Or last week when I was driving down to California to go to Dodgers opening day, I don't want to be cracking shells and leaving shells all over my car. No shell option, boom, pop those, keep me munching the whole drive without putting bad stuff into my body. Little Green Wonders, they pack a protein punch. So whether you're running between your meetings or dropping off the kids, Wonderful Pistachios is the snack that works as hard as you do. So get snacking and get cracking with the snack that packs a protein punch. Visit wonderfulpistachios.com to learn more. We are back. Thank you again for making Locked On Dodgers your first listen. Thanks for being here with us live. All of you who are with us, I appreciate you being here. We had to wait a little bit because, like I said, Vince was at the game, so we had to wait for him to get home because, let's face it, this is a game that both of us need to talk about, and a lot of fun. Not very fun for the first couple innings, kind of between the 5-0 score and how unfun it was the first couple innings. Some maybe resemblances to Game 5 of the World Series, huh?
Definitely similar in the sense of what was going on. Obviously not a similar feeling just because even though the Dodgers undefeated, I guess we don't know, but we assume they're not going to go 162-0. So losing a game after starting 7-0 wasn't going to be a big deal. But yeah, it was just annoying because, again, walks, errors, and then, they ended up getting some hits after the fact. It's just, damn, we're down 5-0 for what reason? No reason other than, we beat ourselves. And then offensively, they did well early on. Like, they had 3 runs before the 5th inning, I believe, but it just was trailing. And then, a couple times it went through. But, yeah, it was definitely, from so many people there, especially early on. And then, to kind of have that really quickly, it was like, oh, man, that's kind of a letdown.
Yeah, absolutely. The main difference, though, between this and Game 5 of the World Series is the Dodgers didn't need help from the Braves defensively to get back in this game. They got a 2-run homer from Tommy Edmonds, Edmonds was the 2-run homer, and then Conforto's was a solo homer. And so Edmund in the 2-run in the 2nd inning, Conforto solo homer in the 4th inning. So at that point it's 5-3, and then nothing for a while until the 8th inning when the Dodgers, Daysbel Hernandez had finished the 7th inning for the Braves. started the 8th inning and got Teoscar out, but then Conforto got a base hit and Smith walked, I believe. Oh yeah, so they pulled
him with 2-0.
Pulled Hernandez in a 2-0 count with Smith up to bat. Brought in their closer, Raisel Iglesias. He finished walking Will Smith to put 2 runners on, and then Tommy Edman hit a chopper to first base, basically a sacrifice bunt that wasn't a bunt. So moved the runners to second and third, 2 outs, tying run on second base. Max Muncy coming up. Muncy had made the 2 errors earlier in the game. The 5 unearned runs were unearned because of Muncy's 2 errors. And so, like I said, the 5 runs weren't all Muncy's fault, but they were all unearned because of him. And he came up. He had a bad game offensively. He had tried using the torpedo bat for an at bat or 2 earlier in the game. And he came up in the 8th inning, back swinging his silver hammer, not the torpedo bat, and against Iglesias. And like, I don't know about you, Vince, and I this is going to sound like revisionist history, like I'm just saying it, but I actually felt pretty good about Muncy in that spot. Like, not like I was 100% sure he was going to get a hit, but Iglesias felt to me like the kind of guy that, yeah, Muncy can rip a line drive off this guy. My only hope was, don't try to hit a home run, Max. You know, a base hit ties this game. I was worried he was going to swing for the fences and strike out. But, you know, he recognized, I just need to hit a line drive somewhere, and that's what he did. So it was, even though it was his 3rd hit of the season, it wasn't a surprising hit to me.
Yeah, honestly, because like I said, Iglesias is so changeup heavy, you can kind of lock in on that. And he was throwing a lot of first pitch changeups. I honestly was expecting a first pitch changeup just out below the zone, and Muncy does one of those pokes in the right field that he's done before, but it didn't go that way. But it ended up being better. You know, smokes a double on the high fastball, and gets to feel that. And they talked to him after the game when I was listening on the radio on the way home. And just that, he has the emotions, and it's kind of weird for these guys that are, some of them are 2-time World Series champions, and we're seeing all this emotion early in the season. And that's because these guys love playing baseball. They love succeeding. And when you're on a team like this, when you're on a team that's so successful, when you're on a team that's currently undefeated, and you're not, the one pulling your weight or helping out, you want to be that guy. And, Muncy said, my teammates have been picking me up all season. It was good to get them back for once. And, especially in that game, he mentioned that game specifically. And yeah, it's one of those where that's when people want to talk about driving factors for the Dodgers this year. And Roberts talked about it a little bit before the game. And he said he's had a chip on his shoulder his whole life. And he feels like it's very easy to convey that to the team because there's always something to find. And I think that's one of the things this team will find is like, oh, I don't want to be the guy that's not doing what I should be doing in order for this team to win.
Absolutely. The way I knew that I was confident that Muncy was going to get a hit was because what I was focusing on almost as much as Muncy's at bat was I was focusing on Will Smith on second base and looking at his secondary lead because I'm thinking, okay, you got to score on a hit, because Michael Harris has a pretty good arm. We saw Stuart Fairchild's arm in right field earlier in the game when he threw out Conforto. Like, okay, I'm like, there's good arms in the outfield, so you got to get a good jump. And that I actually noticed to myself, I'm focusing on Smith's jump. I think Muncy's going to get a hit. And you could see the relief on his face when he got on base. And then, I don't know if you saw this being at the game, Vince, but they showed it on TV after the inning. Muncy gets stranded on second base. Teoscar Hernandez and Mookie Betts, both on their way out to the field, stopped to talk to Muncy and just, basically saying, congratulations, dude, you did it. Like you could tell how happy his teammates were for him because of how he's been grinding.
I didn't notice it at the game in time. I think I was moving sections at that point, but Muncy did mention that in that post-game interview. So yeah, I mean, this team, it's hard to not be this excited about a team that was already supposed to be good, and we're going to keep saying this, and that's just because that's the way it is. Like it's one of those things where I feel, I've talked about in the past how just the postseasons and everything else, and I felt a little jaded, especially sometimes you're like whatever, but. And not just me, like some other people I know, and everyone is locked in. I have like 10 group chats going on during these Dodger games. And, I think everyone's really, really, really into this team right now.
Yeah, absolutely. It's a lot of fun. And you can see it in the players too. I've always been a firm proponent that winning breeds chemistry. Chemistry doesn't breed winning. chemistry comes from, wow, this is fun winning baseball games together, and these guys, they're having a lot of fun winning baseball games together, and knowing that they are kind of a super team, that they're going to have a lot of opportunities to win games this year. It does let them stay loose, even in a game like this, where it's like, what, we only have to score 6 runs in the next 7 innings. We can do that. Like it would be a letdown if we didn't score 6 runs in 7 innings. So that I feel like there's going to be that confidence level where they're never going to be out of a game, between the pitching keeping them in it and the offense knowing that they are capable of doing this at any point. And I guess last thing from me on the Shohei Ohtani, his batting average and his OPS are now higher than they were last year when he won the MVP, which suggests to me my longstanding rule, which is if you can go from lousy season to great season in one game, it's too early to be looking at season stats.
Yeah, definitely, for sure. And I think the other part for me is maybe you can say Edman and Conforto are playing above their means, maybe a little bit offensively. But other than that, nobody's playing above their means. And a lot of these games that they've won have come down to like a big clutch hit. And obviously Mookie's good. Shohei's good. Will Smith has been very good. Freddie hasn't played very often yet. But, it's come down to a big moment. And last night, or this night, was Max Muncy's moment to at least come through and tie the game. And, there might be somebody else, the next day and the next day and the next day. But for all the winning they have done, there's still improvement out there.
Yeah, absolutely. Last thing that we thought we'd be talking about tonight that we aren't, and maybe we'll talk more about tomorrow. Esteury Ruiz was the Dodgers traded for him from the A's. They traded minor league pitcher Carlos Duran for him. Ruiz led the league in stolen bases 2 years ago. Doesn't hit very well, doesn't get on base very well in the majors. He's done fine in the minors. In the majors so far, doesn't get on base enough to take advantage of that speed. And despite the speed, is kind of a bad defensive outfielder. So the Dodgers see something in him, and we'll have to see if that comes to play at any point this season in the big leagues.
Yeah, I actually asked Roberts about that before the game, and he just said he's a plus runner. He's an astute base runner, and Mark Kotze said he liked him and that they see high or upside potential with his bat, the hitting coach.
And did I mention that he's fast?
Yeah, pretty much.
Yeah, so that'll be interesting. We'll see what happens. He's starting in AAA, so we may never say his name again, or he may be the NLCS MVP that I predicted last week would come from outside the organization. So who knows? Time will tell. You got anything else for tonight, Vince?
No, someone said in the chat, but Dodger fans, we've been on. Well, I've been lucky, but we've been on a lucky string. Like I've been, counting October to now, the last 6 games I've been to, I've seen a Freddie walk off, a Mookie walk off, and a Shohei walk off, and there's no other team that you'll be able to be a fan of that can say something like that. So.
Yeah, absolutely, and they're now 18-3 in their last 21 games, dating back to when they were down 2-1 in the NLDS. So decent stretch they're in right now. Yeah,
that'll play.
That'll do it for us for tonight. Thank you all for making us your first listen. Thanks for being here with us live. If you're listening to this on your way to work on Thursday morning, we appreciate you too. We appreciate all of you. Be sure to subscribe wherever you're watching or listening so you can be an everydayer by watching and listening every weekday morning. Also, check out Locked On Sports Today and Locked On Sports Los Angeles, the two 24/7 streaming channels on YouTube from the Locked On Podcast Network. You can also go beyond the podcast and become a Locked On Dodgers insider by going to joinsubtext.com/Locked On Dodgers. Text directly with us, one-on-one conversations, access to our Discord server, all sorts of fun stuff for just a few bucks a month. You can follow us on Instagram, Twitter, and TikTok at Locked On Dodgers. Vince is on Twitter at VinceSince91. I'm on Twitter at Snydog, and both of our DMs are open there. You can also email us at lockedondodgers@gmail.com or send us a voicemail or a text message to 323-863-LOCK 5625. We are here every weekday morning. We hope you'll be here with us when you get in your car or sit on your couch. Tell your smart device to play podcast Locked On Dodgers. And remember, you don't have to agree. You just have to listen. We'll talk to you tomorrow.
Have a good one.